Good morning. This is your big brother Keith coming to you live from the home studio in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. How are you guys this morning? It is a Friday. Thank God for it, huh? TGIF. I know. Praise the Lord. Anyway, so yesterday morning we left off in the book of Matthew, chapter 11, and we were discussing issues from chapter 11 from the book of Matthew. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip over to chapter 12 in the book of Matthew. Okay, so if you have your Bibles, turn in your Bibles to the book of Matthew, and read chapter 12, and we're going to read from verses 1 to 12. Okay, so that'd be the book of Matthew, chapter 12, verse 1 to 12. Okay, and while you're doing that, let me put my reading glasses on so we can get started. Okay, and once you have it, say I have it, and we can begin. Amen. Okay. All right, here we go. The book of Matthew, chapter 12, verse 1 to 12. Okay? Here we go. At that time, Jesus went through the grain field on the Sabbath, and his disciples were hungry and began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath." But he said to them, "Have you not read what David did when he was hungry? He and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and ate the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests. Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath the priest and the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? Yet I say to you that this place there is one greater than the temple. But if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath." Now, when he had departed from there, he went into their synagogue, and behold, there was a man who had a withered hand. And they asked him, saying, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?" that they might accuse him. Then he said to them, "What man is there among you who has one sheep, and if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will you not lay hold of it and lift it out?" Verse 12. Of how much more value then is a man than a sheep. Therefore it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. Now, that's verses 1 to 12 in chapter 12 of the book of Matthew. Now, let's go back to the beginning and hear what the Lord has to say concerning the explanation of these scriptures. And it says in verse 1, once again, "At that time, Jesus went through the grain field on the Sabbath, and his disciples were hungry and began to pluck heads of grain to eat." Now, why did this happen? Because the disciples were hungry. And at that time, when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath." And he said to them concerning Jesus, "Have you not read what David did when he was hungry, and he those who were with him? Now he entered the house of God and ate the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests. Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath the priests and the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? Yet I say to you that this place there is one greater than the temple. But if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord, even on the Sabbath." So when the disciples were hungry, they plucked the heads of grain field on the Sabbath. And the disciples were hungry and began to pluck and eat. Now, the Pharisees told them that that was unlawful for them to do on the Sabbath day. But what does Jesus say? For the Son of Man is Lord, even on the Sabbath. So anything that happens in terms of something that is supposed to be right when it isn't right, You leave that to the Lord, because the Lord is telling you, for the Son of Man is Lord even on the Sabbath. So apparently, if he's the Lord on the Sabbath, then the disciples can do whatever they want to do if it's the right thing to do. You understand what I'm saying? Now it says once again, at the time, he went through the grain field of the Sabbath, and his disciples were hungry and began to pluck heads of grain to eat on the Sabbath day. Now, when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath." Then he explained about David and said, "Have you not read what David did when he was hungry? And he, who those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and ate the showbread which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests." Now, concerning this, now it's telling you that even though that the disciples were hungry, it was unlawful for them to pick the grain field to get something to eat by plucking the head of the grain to eat. But at the same time, even though they did what they did, they were with Jesus. So apparently they were okay about what they did concerning Jesus being in the midst of them, because Jesus said that David ate the showbread. Okay, what does it say here? How he entered the house of God and ate the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests. Now, even though the showbread was for the priests, David entered the house of God and ate the showbread, which was unlawful for him to do. But the Lord was in the midst of everything concerning him eating the showbread. So therefore, it was okay through Jesus for him to do what was right anyway, concerning the law being broken about them not having anything to eat, concerning what the disciples did and what David did at the same time. Because the Lord was there, and the Lord also says once again, for the Son of Man is Lord, even on the Sabbath. Now, who's the Son of Man? We're talking about Jesus Christ. Okay? Now, and then it says here, how he entered the house of God, talking about David, and ate the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests. Or have you not read in the law on the Sabbath that the priests and the temple profaned the Sabbath? Okay, now listen to that. Or you have not read in the law on the Sabbath that the priests and the temple profaned the Sabbath and are blameless. Now, the priests also, now even though the priest thought that this was wrong concerning what David did, at the same time, the priest profaned, okay, the Sabbath. Now, why would they profane the Sabbath? Because they thought they had power, like Jesus Christ, in terms of having the ability to tell people what to do and what not to do. You understand what I'm saying? But to do and what not to do, we leave that to the Lord, because everything is his. Am I not right? Okay. Now, who created the Sabbath day? Jesus created the Sabbath day as God in the beginning, okay? Now, even though the priests profaned the Sabbath, okay, they were wrong, and it was unlawful for them to do that. But at the same time, it says once again how David, he entered the house of God and ate the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests, which means that the priests were the only one who can eat the showbread, not David, okay? Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath, the priests and the temple profaned the Sabbath and are blameless? Now, why were they blameless? Because Christ found no fault in them concerning them eating the bread, the showbread, on the Sabbath. And not only that, but profanity, okay, the Sabbath, okay? Now, at the same time, now, even though they did that, the Lord found them blameless, only because of the fact that he came to the world so that everyone could be blameless under him. That's why he came into the world, so that man can have a second chance through him, as we've been talking about for a while now. He came to the world to have man not be blameless of anything concerning the Father being in the midst. You understand what I'm saying? Only because of the fact that he loved man so much. So he wanted to give man a second chance, because in the beginning, in the book of the Old Testament, how the flood came in Noah's time, is when God destroyed the world. Remember that? And it destroyed man and the earth only because of the sins that they caused in the earth. But since Jesus came as a reincarnation to walk the earth and to be with man as a friendship, he found man blameless of the things that they were doing in terms of whatever happened on the Sabbath day as well. So, as I've said before, for the Son of Man is the Lord, even on the Sabbath. So we have to respect the Lord no matter what happens, okay? But at the same time, through him, it was okay that David did what he did, and it was okay that the disciples did what they did because they were with Jesus Christ, okay? Now, at the same time, the priests profaned the Sabbath, okay? Now, that's something that you can't do because when you do something like that, you're held guiltless, and it can also cause murder. They can also kill you at that time if you did something like that. But since Jesus was in their midst, it didn't happen. So we just thank God for that at the same time. But in the beginning, it says at the time when Jesus went through the grain field on the Sabbath, he and his disciples were hungry, okay, and began to pluck heads of grain to eat. Even though that it was unlawful, but it was okay for them to pluck the grain, okay, to eat, only because of the fact that Jesus was with them. And of course, he wanted them to eat. And there's nothing wrong with that concerning him being with them and them having something to eat because they were already saved by his grace anyway. So they were blameless at the same time. And then it says concerning David, but he said to them, have you not read what David did when he was hungry? And those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and ate the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests, which means that the priests only had the ability to be able to do what they want to do concerning something to eat. And David was not suitable to do what he did concerning the Sabbath, only because they found him guiltless. Okay, they found him guilty, not guiltless. But the Lord found him guiltless only because of the fact that he did something on the Sabbath that wasn't right. So he wasn't guilty at that time. But we thank God for that. And it says here, or have you not read in the law of the Sabbath that the priests in the temple profaned the Sabbath and are blameless? Now, why did the Lord find them blameless concerning what they did in terms of the profanity on the Sabbath? Only because of the fact that the Lord loved them so much that no matter what man did, Jesus always backed them up, no matter what happened. Okay, and then it says here, but if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. So they couldn't be condemned only because of the Lord being with them at the time. Okay, so, and then it says as we move on, and when he had departed from there, he went into the synagogue, and behold, there was a man who had a withered